Hi, everyone. We'll get going in just a little bit. I always like to maybe just have a song in the background playing. Otherwise, there's just kind of this silence. So I'm just going to play one of my favorite songs. Here we go. When I would do this for students when we were during the pandemic, I would play songs as we were getting ready, and I'd ask them to say, "Do you guys know what this is? Put it in the chat." And it was pretty impressive what the kids knew. Okay, we're just going to give our admin just a minute maybe to pop on here. I know they wanted to jump on.
I'm here, Heidi.
Hi.
Sorry, I've been on. I apologize. I had an appointment running late, and so I'm trying to pull over on the side of the road. I was like trying to get home, and that's not going to happen. So.
All right. Well, Ms. Gardner, I'll start the presentation if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself. So
yeah, can
can
you just give me like 30 more seconds to safely pull over? I don't want
Of course.
I'm just pulling into a gas
I'm
station. I
going to work
apologize, everybody.
on sharing my screen in the meantime.
Okay. I'm safely parked off the road.
All right.
So hi everybody, my name is Alyssa Gardner. I am an assistant principal at St. Louis Park High School. This is my first year with St. Louis Park Schools, and I this year worked with both the 9th grade and the 11th grade. So I'm a part of this conversation with Ms. Cosgrove because these are the students I've been working with this year, and I will follow them into their senior year. So I just wanted to be here to welcome everybody. And, you know, we've had a tumultuous few years as a society, and just really thinking about what that impact has looked like for our students. This 11th grade cohort, you know, they've had a lot of ups and downs in their high school experience. And so we just really thank you for being supportive and being with us to partner and to just, I think, really figure out what we can do to make sure that we set all of our students up for a successful senior year. You know, our 11th graders, they didn't really get to finish out their 8th grade year in middle school. All of a sudden they were 9th graders and they were virtual. And then in their 10th grade year, you know, they were back, but we were masked. And now this year finally was supposed to kind of be that normal year, but what that means for credits and career planning and all of that, there's a lot of impacts and a lot of things to consider. So we appreciate you really being working alongside with us, and Ms. Cosgrove has a lot of information to share. And in the end, you'll have our contact information to reach out if you have any individual questions. You know, we're happy to really partner with you and just try to figure out what's going to be best for your child.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Gardner. Drive safely, please.
Sorry, I'm going to stick around for a couple minutes,
Okay.
but I'll stay parked for a little bit. I apologize, everybody.
All right. Wonderful.
Okay.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for coming. I'm just making sure that I'm doing this correctly. We'll just go like that. Okay. Or I don't know if you want to see me, but then I see Ms. Gardner. Okay, so I am presenting for Ms. Bowman, who is the 11th grade counselor. And myself and Barb Nelson, all of you worked with Barb Nelson if you were here with us in 9th grade. And we are going to be helping to support the 11th graders register for their 12th grade year. And I kind of like little QR codes. So I'll have this kind of throughout, but it links directly to our registration information on the high school website. There we go. Okay, so let's see. I don't know how to get this out of the way. Maybe I'll put this way up there. There we go. So I just wanted everybody to kind of know what our registration timeline is. So last week, all of your students in their social studies classes got to hear about all the different electives that the high school has to offer. And it was done through a fun little elective fair that all the different departments went around to talk about the different courses that are offered at the high school. And then starting next week, we are going into the 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade classrooms in their English classrooms to help the students register and to see these PowerPoints to help them understand graduation and what classes to be taking. And then we'll also be at the middle school. And then the final week in February, once we're all done with classroom presentations, we are going to have drop-in times for students, families, if you have any questions about registration in terms of how we can help, anything like that, then we will have opportunities for students to come in, and myself and Ms. Milne, who is currently the 12th grade counselor, are going to be available for juniors to help answer any questions regarding senior year. I had the seniors last year. I had the class of 2022. Ms. Milne has the class this year. So we're very in tune with seniors and what they're needing, and a lot of questions that they may have as well. So one thing that I always like to start with my students, and I want to make sure that you're also hearing what the students are going to be hearing, is they often have questions about their GPA and graduation requirements right out of the gate. So I just want students to remind them of where they can actually find their GPA and credit information, and it's directly on PowerSchool right by the grades and attendance. And they will have their cumulative GPA that includes all the semesters of high school while they're here. And then it will have their cumulative credit count. It says hours I don't know why it says that, but it's their credit count. So it'll have their total credits as of first semester 11th grade. It always just includes what classes are finished, nothing that is in progress like this semester. And then I like to show students kind of the breakdown of where their GPA might lie. So if they perhaps have a 2.8 GPA, they're going to be right between a B minus and a B. If they have a 3.8 GPA, they're kind of right in between that A and A minus. And all letter grades are factored into the GPA with the exception of a pass grade. And then any NCs that we used when we were deeper in the pandemic and with distance learning. One thing students have had some questions on is kind of how the high school is doing the pass-fail for this year. And it is different than the last few years. So students have to connect with their teachers. They have up until the 6th week of the semester to talk with their teachers about a pass-fail, and it's only the elective classes that are able to do a pass-fail. So that is something new to our students this year. So that was something that was talked about in their connections classes and everything, just to make sure that they were aware of that. I always get that magic question of what will my GPA be if I get this or if I get that. And those are very real and valid questions. And I wish I had the math brain to do that, but unfortunately I don't. But there's an app for everything. There's a website for everything. And there are some really neat GPA calculators that are out there. I have one in this presentation link that will be on the high school website. They're not perfect, but they're pretty close. And so they can be super helpful and kind of fun for students to play with if they are wondering about that. And then I want to make sure students and families understand the graduation requirements. The magic number is 46. So students need 46 semester credits to graduate high school, and one semester of a class equals 1 credit. And just remember that study halls do not issue any credit. So the magic number is 46. Now, I always like to tell students and families some fun facts about what that means, because I know sometimes students and families get nervous with the idea of study halls in their student's day. And fun fact number 1 is if a student never, ever, ever takes a study hall during high school and they pass all their classes, they would actually graduate with 56 credits. That's 10 more than they need. And fun fact number 2 is if a student does take one study hall every semester while they're in high school, starting from 9th grade all the way to senior year, and they pass all their classes, they graduate with 48 credits, still 2 more than they actually need for graduation. So I do want to assure students and families that if they have a study hall and they're doing what they need to do, that's okay, and they'll be okay meeting their graduation requirements. Students will always ask for right now when we go into classrooms, they want to know how many credits should I have right now? I just finished semester 1 of 11th grade. So where should I be at? How many should I have? And that's a great question. I'm really happy when they're asking that because they're really thinking about their progress. So I have 2 examples, and the bluish example is if a student has had 1 study hall every semester so far, meaning they've had 6 classes every semester since 9th grade. And when you add that up, that comes to 30.5 credits. And that 0.5 is actually coming from their connections advisory. So that's why there's a 0.5. And the second example in pink is if a student has never had a study hall so far, starting in 9th grade to last semester, never had a study hall. And so they would actually have about 35.5 credits, again, from that connections advisory from that 0.5. So kind of that absolute perfection of where they should be credit-wise is anywhere between 30.5 to 35.5 credits. Now, there could be students that are above that because maybe they're in some of the additional music like park singers or jazz band or things like that. And we also could have students a little bit below that of 30 credits. And that could be that perhaps they're coming from another school that was not on a 7-period day. Perhaps they did have a couple more study halls for various reasons. Perhaps they didn't pass some classes. So I always tell students that if they're below that 30 mark to not panic, because there's ways that we can help support the student to work on continuing to earn credits and work on getting additional credits outside of the school day through credit recovery. So I never want a student to feel like they're not going to graduate, because we can help them work towards that. Within those 46 credits, they do have to earn them in certain areas. So that's the other piece. They can't have like 30 credits of underwater basket weaving or anything like that. It has to be in certain areas. And if you're a list person, I have a list of how many English credits, social studies, and again, 1 credit equals 1 semester. So they would need 8 semesters of English or 4 years, 8 semesters of social studies or 4 years, 6 semester credits of math or 3 years, and so forth. And again, if they are in a situation of credit recovery as they're heading into their senior year, we can certainly talk to them about summer school options, perhaps registering for the class again, or doing our Plato Edmentum credit recovery online. And this is a visual view of that laundry list. I know Ms. Milne and I are very, very visual, so we don't really work with just a laundry list. So we actually have a visual, kind of like a puzzle piece of how we keep track of those credits to make sure that students are on track. And that's just kind of a quick visual of what that looks like to try and put that together. And I like the pathways views because I think it kind of spells it out a little bit more. So for English, the required classes are students need to get through English 9, English 10, English 11, and then we're going to talk about what they need for English 12 as we get to the registration part. And for social studies, they need to have 4 years of social studies. So in 9th grade, they were doing their civics. In 10th grade, they were doing their worlds or European history courses. And then this year as juniors, they're doing their US history. And then 12th grade, you can see it's kind of a whole bunch of classes, which is really fun for juniors to be thinking about for social studies, because there's just a lot of different classes that they can choose from. And we'll talk about that too as we get more to the registration part. And then for science, I think this is a little tricky because it looks like there's 4 years of science required, but they actually need 3 years of science. And I'm very visual, so you're going to see a lot of color pop out here. So for science, what they actually need is 1 year of biology, a full year of biology, which is what they do in junior year. And then they need 1 year of a full year of chemistry or a full year of physics, one or the other. And then they need 1 more year of any other science. And that often comes from their 9th grade year of Science 9 or AP environmental science, whatever they took in 9th grade. So students, juniors can often get pretty excited about this because they kind of feel like, oh, I don't have to take science in senior year. And from a graduation perspective, that is correct. But we also want to make sure that we're thinking about post-secondary needs. And especially if they're thinking of going on to particularly a 4-year school, that we want to make sure that we're really thinking of some science. Or if they're looking at the medical field, we want to make sure that we're thinking of that physics or IB biology if they're doing that right now. And then math is always a little tricky as well. And I like kind of my colored boxes here because it helps me keep track of exactly how to meet the math requirements. And the key in meeting the math requirements is all students must get through advanced algebra. That is a state of Minnesota requirement. So they need to do 3 years of math through advanced algebra. And there's often 3 ways that they do this. The first option is where they come in doing geometry in 9th grade, and then 10th grade, they perhaps did advanced algebra. And this year they're doing pre-calculus. Or option 2, in 9th grade, they came into geometry. Perhaps in 10th grade, they did intermediate algebra or what's like algebra 1. And then this year they're doing advanced algebra as a junior. Or the advanced option is if they came in ninth grade and they had already done geometry at middle school, and so they're going through the advanced route of honors, advanced algebra, AP stats, IB options, things like that. So, and again, this is where students can sometimes get a little excited as they're thinking of senior year, wondering, oh, I'm already through advanced algebra this year. Do I have to take math? And the thing again is no, from a graduation perspective, you do not have to take math, but a lot of times if students are going on to 2 or 4 year schools, there is going to be some level of math requirement to graduate from that college 2-year or 4-year trade. So it's often a good idea that if they can hang on for that 4th year of math to try and do that. And a lot of times it can be a little tricky in terms of, well, what should my student register for math? And our math department made these handy dandy pathways to help students and parents know what the options are. So I just broke it down by if your student started in geometry in 9th grade, did their intermediate algebra and then advanced algebra, here's what they would take. Kind of the same thing if they started in geometry, last year they did advanced algebra, perhaps this year they're in pre-calc, here's what they can do for 12th grade. And then I broke that down if they started in 9th grade in honors geometry, and then in 10th grade, they were doing their advanced algebra. And then this year they're doing their pre-calc or AP calc, just to show you that we do have it mapped out to help students and families know what next level of math to register. And then finally, the advanced option that if they came in 9th grade already ready to do advanced algebra, here's their pathways of what they're doing. So it's a lot of information right here. And my purpose of showing you this is just so that you know we have it mapped out of what would be some options. Nonetheless, what's super helpful, especially as there's multiple options in senior year, what we really ask students and families to do is to connect with their current math teacher or their math teacher from first semester to definitely get the recommendations of what would be a good math program for senior year, if that's what they choose to do. And then the other requirements, they need to do their semester of Phi-Ed and semester of health, which many of the students did in 9th and 10th grade. And then they have their Park Connections, which is kind of their advisory college and career time. And they get a 0.25 little quarter credit every year, which equals 1 credit. And that is required for graduation. And then our art requirement, students need to take 2 art classes, and it can be any art classes. Or a year-long class. So for instance, if your student did band, choir, or orchestra for a full year, they are done with their art requirement. If they took perhaps painting and woodworking, they are done with their art requirement. So any 2 classes in these areas will fulfill their art requirement. And then the one thing is their electives. And a lot of times students are really unsure, well, what does an elective mean and how many electives do I need? And essentially students need 13 semester-long classes for electives. And that can be foreign language, any business classes, any additional music classes that they're taking. That's where that 4th year of math would count as an elective. That 4th year of science would count. If they're taking additional gym classes, art classes, English like ECHO or ECHO1, additional social studies, if they want a TA, those are all elective classes. And what happens is they start getting filled in. You can see the little ones that kind of popped up here. So a lot of times students will think that they need a foreign language to graduate from the high school, and the high school actually has no foreign language requirement for graduation. Of course, we absolutely recommend them to take at least 2 years, but there's no requirement for that. So any language that they're taking gets counted as an elective each semester. So for instance, if they took Spanish 1 semester 1, that's class 1. If they took Spanish 1 semester 2, there's another one. they took ICL in 9th grade, and I'm just putting some examples on here of what can count as electives. And students are pretty surprised of how quickly the electives get filled up with the classes that they're taking. One thing is, because we do have students that come from other schools, I just always want to make sure that they don't feel forgotten about, because sometimes we have students that come from quarter system, block system, trimester system, and I just want to let them know that we have ways of figuring out your credits and making sure that they transition nicely to our high school system. Okay. So I just want to talk about some enrichment opportunities that the high school has. And our popular one is PSEO, and that stands for Post-Secondary Enrollment Options. And kind of bottom line, students need to be in good academic standing to be accepted to PSEO, and they apply, and the colleges determine if they're going to be accepted. So they don't sign up for PSEO. They actually have to go through an application with the college to be accepted. And we are going to have many student presentations of how this whole PSEO works from start to finish. And here are the dates that those are starting on and the class periods. They just need to attend one. Students have asked if they can attend two, just to hear it again and make sure they're understanding, and they certainly can. And so those are the student presentations that they are required to go if they are going to be starting PSEO or hoping to apply and then start in the fall. And then we also have student application help with their PSEO applications. We want to make sure they know how to navigate the application, know how to get all the paperwork that they need. So we actually have workshops for students to come into our office and get help with those applications if they're interested in that. And then there's also going to be a parent guardian information presentation, and that's going to be next Wednesday from 6:30 to 7:30. And this information is also on the website as well. Whoops. And then just to quickly talk about deadlines, because this is pretty crucial if your student's thinking about PSEO. The U of M deadline to apply for the fall is April 17th. And to apply for the fall semester, students need to have that application done by May 30th if they want to apply for the fall. And Laura King is now going to be our PSEO coordinator. So she is going to be leading many of these sessions. We're super excited to have her on board doing this, where students can meet with her to discuss different types of classes, any additional questions they have, and all that great information that comes with PSEO. Other enrichment opportunities that's available for students is our advanced placement. Those are our AP classes that are listed on the right, and those are full year classes. And then in May, students take an AP test to see how they score, and they can bring that score with them to post-secondary institutions to see if that post-secondary will grant them credit for their AP test. We also have articulated college credits, the ACC classes, and these are classes that are articulated or connected with area colleges like Normandale, North Hennepin, where if students score an 80% in the course, that partnering college will issue them a transcript and credit that they can have with them if they go and pursue any sites that they would like to go to. So this is another great way of earning some college credit in kind of the business areas, the tech areas, which is wonderful. And then we have something called concurrent enrollment, and these are actually the college courses on our campus. And so our high school teachers are trained to teach these college courses on our campus. Again, they're partnering with a lot of times Normandale. And that's where they will get a transcript from Normandale in these classes to take with them on their next place. And then we also have work-based learning opportunities with Kara Mueller, and she does amazing work if students are interested in apprenticeships in IT or HVAC or nursing assistant, manufacturing. So some really great opportunities for students to have in these areas too. So it's really important for us to let students and families know that we have a lot of enrichment opportunities that are beyond the traditional AP classes and things like that. And then we have the International Baccalaureate program, which students typically start in their 10th grade year. And so I know we have a handful of students heading into their senior year, finishing their IB diploma program. We have an amazing enrichment coordinator that can help students with these particular enrichment opportunities. And her name is Faduma Deed, and she's great at helping students out and answering any questions for families on those particular enrichment opportunities. Whoops. Okay. And I believe Kelsey Mill, who's currently the senior counselor, is on here with me. And she is monitoring the chat. And one thing that we're going to have is we're creating a document of frequently asked questions, an FAQ, because we get fabulous questions that come into our email box or to these chats that we want to make sure that everybody has access to hear the answers. So we're going to be creating that and putting it on the registration page on the high school website. So we can be sharing all the insights and wonderings that families are having. Okay. So a lot of information coming at you. Just real quick, I just have to mention this. I'm thinking that this is junior to senior year, and I'm kind of thinking, I'm a parent to parent. I'm like, oh, this is their last high school registration information session. I'm just kind of realizing that now. So, so parents, that just, nice job. Okay, so registering for classes. So your students in the next 2 weeks are going to get their registration planner sheet. And it looks like this on the screen. It's going to have a back and front side that's going to really walk them through the courses for registering for classes. And when I'm in their classrooms, or when Ms. Nelson is in their classrooms, we're actually going to be having them go on their PowerSchool website. And they are literally going to be inputting their courses at that time. And so this is something they've been doing since 8th grade. So this should be somewhat familiar to them, and they're kind of the old guard knowing how to do this. So they're pretty good with this. So one of the things that I like to talk to students right away about is they start wondering, well, how many classes should I be registering for? Like how many boxes should I have? What's kind of the scoop on this? What do I need to do? So looking at the registration page, there's a whole bunch of like little boxes on here that indicate if it's a 1 semester class, if it's a 2 semester class. So they're literally kind of checking off their boxes of what they're registering for. So that's the front and back. So what I tell them is, here's how it works. If you are registering for 14 classes, meaning you have 14 boxes checked, you are having 0 study halls. If you have 13 boxes checked on that front and back, you will have 1 study hall for the year. If you have 12 boxes checked front and back, you will have 2 study halls. And then if you have 10 boxes checked, you will have 4 study halls, ideally 2 each semester. And it will keep tab at the bottom of, this page right here. It will keep tab of how many they're registering for. And the reason I have a caution, an extra caution, if students are going to register for 12 or 10, especially if they're registering for semester-long courses, the caution that I have is it's very common where seniors want to take just 5 classes each semester, so they only register for 10. The tricky part is, what if those classes that they're registering for, what if 7 of them are only offered semester 2 and 3 of them are only offered semester 1, and we need to have seniors at a minimum of 5 classes? Then they're kind of stuck not having enough classes. So they're scrambling in the fall going, we got to get you some more classes. So that's why I'm always cautious of students registering for just 10. I always like if they can register for at least 12 and kind of see how things shake out, and maybe find out if they do like, hey, I like this class, I'm going to keep it. Or, in that first week, we can always exit it if that's kind of what's working out too. So just a little caution with that. At the bottom of this page, there's going to be a little submit button for them, and they can save their work, and they can reopen it and make any adjustments to it up until Thursday, March 3rd. So when we're in classrooms with them, we're going to be like, start putting your classes in. If you need to go back, talk with your families, do a little bit more research, you can go back in and make any adjustments up until Thursday, March 3rd, and then it does close. So we'll walk them through step by step of what courses they need to be registering for. So we'll talk to them about their senior English. And if they were taking IB English right now, they could continue with their IB program into senior year. Otherwise, there is a 1 semester English 12 stage literature course that is required if they're not taking the IB English classes. And since that's a 1 semester course, then they need to choose an English elective on the back of their registration sheet. And I just did a quick screenshot of what those electives could be. It could be journalism, theater arts, creative writing, small group, Echo on TOK cinema. So that would be the other partner with English 12 stage literature. And then there's social studies registration. This is where they get some really fun options coming into senior year. So they need to take 2 credits of social studies, and that can be anything from the AP or IB year-long social studies, from AP psychology to AP micro macro economics, IB history. We have a new course, AP African American Studies, coming in. That one right now is a pilot. And so when students take the AP test, because it's so new, colleges might not be in process of accepting that for college credit yet, but I think it's going to be a great course. If they're not interested in the AP, then on the right-hand side, there are 4 semester-long classes, and students would want to choose 2 of those 4. Students always wonder, well, I really want to take AP psychology. Can I also take criminal justice? Yes, absolutely you can. The AP psychology will cover your senior social studies requirement, and the criminal justice will now be counted as an elective. So we often see that quite a bit, students doing that. And again, I'm very visual. I like my little colored boxes. So here's just kind of a visual of that. We're option 1. They can choose any 2 of those classes, each a semester long, or they can choose 1 of the AP, and they are a full year. I've had students want to take AP psychology and AP macro micro. They wonder if they can do that. Absolutely. We'll use 1 of those to cover your senior social studies requirement, and the other one will count as an elective. So absolutely. The math registrations, again, with those math pathways that I showed, it's just going to be super, super important to make sure that you or your student just connect with your math teacher to to figure out what the next best step is for math. A note of change is our pre-calculus is going to be termed next year AP pre-calculus. When I saw that, I was like, AP pre-calc, okay. And hearing from the math department, it's not going to be like this huge step up. It's going to be the same as what we have now. They just wanted to add an AP option because there is an AP test for that now. And again, the little visual of the 3 options of how to meet the math requirements. And again, the key is advanced algebra. And then science registration. For senior year, we see a lot of students do physics or IB physics, or if students are in IB biology right now, that they often continue with IB biology. We have students that say, well, if I'm in IB biology, can I also take physics? Sure, absolutely. We'll count by the 4th year of senior science, they go under the elective piece. So that's totally fine if they want to do that. And my little visual of how the 3 years of science work again. And then on the back of the sheet that they're going to get are all the electives. And a lot of times students wonder, well, all those little boxes, do I have to pick one from each department? No, they don't have to pick one from each department. We just like to separate them out just so that students can find the classes of maybe what they're looking for. Perhaps they're wanting to find something in business, and we just want to list all the business classes so they don't have to go searching for them on the sheet. So again, what we tell them is you do not need to pick something from every box, but what we do need to be mindful of is that breakdown again. Again, if they have 14 classes or boxes selected, how many study halls that gives them, and so forth. So that's one thing we'll really make sure and help them understand is depending on how many they choose will ultimately determine if and how many study halls they have. A lot of times students will ask if they can register to be a TA or student aid, and that is nothing they can register for right now. It's essentially a study hall. And then when they come in the fall, that is when they fill out the application to turn their study hall into a student aid. And they do receive elective credit for that one time towards their 46. They can certainly TA again if they like to. I know they like the experience and being helpful and to teachers, and they would just get an NC credit if they did that again. A lot of times our incoming seniors like to have open hours, meaning they want to come in later or want to leave earlier. Or they want their study hall, whether it's 4th hour or 5th hour, to be an open hour. And really for open hours and study halls, it's really just luck of the draw of how the computer lands the courses in the schedule. A lot of times we get students asking, well, you know, can I request that I have an open hour? I have to work, or students will say I'm tired in the morning, or I have sports. Unfortunately, we can't adjust schedules to do open hours. And a couple years ago, we actually tracked how many requests we get for open hours. We had over 800 requests from 11th and 12th graders, and not 800 kids, but maybe kids asking again and again and again about that. So it does get a lot, and that's just something we really tell the students is, you know, if we could, we would, but you got one more year in high school, and then you can create any schedule you want from that standpoint. And then I always like to give some final registration advice to students. Academic sanity. There's always the question of, is it better to get an A in a regular class or a B, C, or D in an AP or honors class? And that's a tough one because I also want, if a student really likes the subject, but maybe they might get a C, but it's maybe a subject that they're interested in, you know, that's big for me if they're interested. Now, if they're going to register for a whole bunch of AP and IB classes where they're going to see multiple C's, then I'm like, okay, let's rebalance. What do we need to do so that we're not quite doing that. And it's really about registering for classes that, you know, they feel they can be successful in and are interested in. And it doesn't have to be the whole AP and IB realm, and not what friends are registering for. Students still kind of get stuck in that piece of registering for what their friends want to register for. And I think it's also about ability and balance. I tell my daughter this all the time. I'm like, you know, you might have all the ability in the world to do something, but I also want to see what else is happening in your life. What else do you have going on that we need to make sure we have balance in? And I did ask some colleges, particularly the U of M. I've got some colleagues over there, and I loved what they told me is they in particular said, take the most challenging courses that you can be successful in. That's kind of the bottom line. And for one person, success means an A. For another person, success in an AP class could mean a B or a C. So it also depends on how do you define success. And then I like to talk to juniors about this phantom class that that is going to be there. And it's a phantom class that will consume a ton of mental energy, that will drain them. They're going to be voices kind of around. They're going to be your best pal, yet your worst enemy sometimes. They're going to take up several hours of your time, of your week. It can cost some money, and likes to create unknown and angst and anxiety and wondering, and to be ready for this phantom class that is coming to your seniors. And this phantom class, for some, it's for some students, it's making up some credits to graduate. For a lot of students, it's the phantom class of what am I going to do after graduation? Kelsey and I, having worked with seniors for the last 2 years, this is something that weighs heavily on our kids. Wondering about the post-secondary application process, how all that works, and just being a senior. You know, I asked my group of I had the class of 2019 and 22. And I said, you know, you guys, you always hear that junior year is the hardest. Like junior year is the big year. That's the hardest. And my students in those 2 classes said, Ms. Cosgrove, no, senior year is the hardest. And this was in the spring as they went through senior year, and they said senior year is by far the hardest. You know, they're wondering, what am I doing? Where am I going? I got applications, and the big one was staying motivated to get things done. So that's something I want to make sure that students are thinking about as they're thinking about their registration. And you know, I talked to my students about, you know, over the last few years, you know, you've probably had some of this on your plate. Now you're adding even more to it as you continue to go through junior year, and in senior year, you're adding more to that plate. And so how does that take into account of what classes you're registering for as well? And then to kind of go back, take a look at what you're registering for, add on those phantom classes of what's going to be coming on, and just, you know, revisiting what you do want to register for. And I really believe it's about balancing the puzzle, to pick classes that offer challenge, rigor, and interest while balancing health, wellness, sleep, and me time. I tell students, you got 24 hours in a day. That's all you got. What's going to go into it? What's going there? What classes are you working? Are you in activities? You know, what's all happening? You know, because when students kind of overload a little bit, the first thing they start to give up on is sleep. That's the first thing that goes. And so just making sure that as they come into that senior year, they're balancing as much as they can and really thinking about that 24-hour day. Okay. So, we are in, like I mentioned, earlier, we are in English 10, 11, and at the middle school for the next 2 weeks, presenting information to the kiddos. So, if your student or you have questions about, registration, the end of February is when Ms. Milne and I will have, times all day just to stop in, come in, please ask us questions. We would love to help support you and your student in registering for their final year of high school. I also want students and families to know about the post-planning that's available on our high school website that Ms. Kara Mueller runs, and it's got some great resources, some cute little videos, but some college resources, ACT, planning, interest inventories, enrichment opportunities, just some really great information she has. And then there's in March, there's going to be a virtual college fair sponsored by what's called NACAC, the National Association of College and Admissions Counseling. And they tend to have a lot of these that start to come up, these virtual college fairs, which is great. And then Ms. Mueller also has wonderful information about career areas in IT, manufacturing, if your student's interested in that, HVAC industry, all these wonderful things. And that's available right on our website. So that was, let's see. I am just going to look at the chat for a moment. So some of the questions, and we'll put these on our FAQ as well, because they're really, really great questions. So if your student was taking like some of those articulated courses where they can earn college credit, they want to work with their teacher to work on getting that credit, and then Ms. Mueller, who can help them get the credit and work with the college to make sure that they get that. Let's see. Oh, Kelsey, that's you. Can you give me access? Yes. History of authoritarian states. Yes, that class is being offered. So the question is IB history of authoritarian states being offered? Yes. So our IB history is a 2-year program. But what they're going to do for next year is it's going to be an every other year rotation. So next year it's going to be the second year, and then so it's going to be the second year for juniors for that one. So yes. Great question. For the PSEO, where are the PSEO courses located? So PSEO can be done at any of the 2- and 4-year schools. And since the pandemic, I feel like I'm seeing the colleges offer still in-person classes, of course, but also more online. And so students either go to the campus, or if they register for an online one, or both for that. And if your student there's a question of if students are applying for PSEO, how do they do the registration piece? It's a great question. So no matter what, because students aren't accepted yet to PSEO, they're going to go through the registration process, just like if they weren't even going to do PSEO. And then once they get accepted, once they get their classes organized, then they'll come back and we figure out how to adjust and relook at what courses they want to take at St. Louis Park, if any, and what classes they want to take at the college, and work their schedule so everything kind of fits together. Let's see. What do most PSI kids do for Spanish senior year? Kelsey, I believe it's Spanish 10. Does that sound right? I believe.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. So Spanish X. Got it. The IB authoritarian states for current junior standard. Yes. So the IB history class that's going to be offered next year is IBHL2 or SL, it's the same thing, authoritarian states. And that's what will be offered next year that our seniors can take. I'm hoping I'm answering that correctly. If I'm answering your question correctly, or if I'm hearing it correctly, or sorry, reading it correctly. Okay. So as you can see, I talk a lot. And I just want to open it up for any other questions. Feel free to please put them in the chat because we're going to grab these questions because they're great questions, and also put them on our FAQ as well. But certainly you are free to go as well. But Kelsey and I will stay for any questions that you have.
Is it okay to unmute?
Yes.
Okay, great. So back to the IB history
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
My 11th grader could only take the IB history of authoritarian governments this year because they put them in with the seniors. So next year, he has to take the IB history of the Americas in order to get that US history requirement.
Got
I
it.
believe that's how they did it because of the numbers with the number of IB kiddos.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know what? That's a great question. We'll jot that one down and just bring it to our admin just to make sure if I missed something incorrectly with that. So
Thank you.
to make sure making sure that I'm understanding that one of how that rotation is working. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Hello. Another question. So are we, the students, registering for our classes through Naviance or through PowerSchool? Because I thought I heard Naviance at
Yep.
school.
Great question. So we're actually going to have the current 10th and the current 11th go through PowerSchool for
Okay.
registering. Current 9th, I can't remember what I didn't really pay attention to what they're doing. I think they're going through PowerSchool, and then the current 8th graders are going to go through Naviance just because of how it's built. That I think it won't suffice right now to I think it could create a little bit more confusion for our current 10th and current 11th.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question of Hebrew. Can a student take a 4th year of Hebrew? And our Hebrew only goes through 3 levels of Hebrew. More questions, keep them coming.
I have a question. If our student is taking his science and math and North Star online rather than in class, do they see in the presentation, is there something that he's missing for the registration process for next year that you said was going to be done in his math or science class?
So the registration, we're going to actually be in their English classes for that. But if a student is in Northern Star Online or an online program where we won't be seeing them, we will definitely get to them to make sure that they have their registration done.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Have a good night.
Thank you.
So I have a question about language courses. So I'm doing like like the Concordia language villages. Do you know about that?
Yep.
What would be the process for like letting the school know about the 4-week credit thing?
Yeah. So Concordia Language Villages is really good about issuing kind of their Concordia Language Village transcript. And as long as they have that and issue you that, please bring that into us so that we can get that on your transcript and issue you the foreign language credit through Concordia.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and then also, so I've been taking Spanish for 3 years, and I know most colleges want like 4 years of foreign language.
Mhm.
Do you think they would want 4 years of like the same language? Like, should
Yes.
I take Spanish again next year?
Yeah, typically all the colleges are going to say they want the same language. So what they don't want is students to maybe take 2 years of Spanish and 2 years of French. So it's really the same language. And typically from the 4-year colleges, like the liberal arts colleges like the U of M or Gustavus or St. Cloud or something like that, they're not only is there a language requirement emphasis to get into the college, but a lot of times they require language at the college level just to graduate from their college. So that's why they want the amount of levels in the same language.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Those that are leaving, thank you. Have a good night. We'll stay on for any other questions too. Thank you for coming. Oh, where can we find the recorded version of this meeting? It's recording right now, recording right now. So when we get it downloaded, we're going to have it put up on the website as well as the PowerPoint too. Thank you. All right, Kelsey, I'm going to end the meeting to end the recording.
Okay, I could. Okay, I'll get on the next one.
Do you, I'm going to take can I just cut and paste all these questions?
Yes. I think you can just end the recording.
Let's see. I just don't want to lose the questions
Oh, yeah.
because they have some.
I think for the next one, Heidi, you'll have to make me a co-host because I could only message you.
See, and I thought I had everybody as a co-host,
Mm-hmm.
but I honestly I don't know how to do it. I'm doing it wrong. That's not it. Shoot. How do I get,
No problem. You did great.
how do I get these? Should I just take a screenshot?
Can you just copy it and then put it in like a Google Doc or
Oh,
send it?
that's what I was trying to do.
You can take a screenshot though.
Let's see. No, it's not doing it. Maybe I'll just cut and paste it or just screenshot it. 620. $623. Okay. All right, I'm gonna end. Yep,
Okay, I'll meet you on the other one.
all right.